Hello, good people. I'm here to talk to you about a serious problem that most people don't understand. Bad typography. What is bad typography? Let me show you. From bad kerning to bad lettering to just plain bad words, bad typography is a scourge that is sweeping the nation, and we need to do something to stop it. That's why us at the Council for Better Type has come up with a 10-point plan to fix this problem and solve the nation's woes of bad typography. I thank you, and God bless. Hey, thanks, Mr. Font Guy. Today we're going to cover 3 things about fonts and typography. First, where to find fonts online. Second, how to install fonts. And third, font pairings and how to get better at creating font pairings. So let's start with where to download good fonts online. Good fonts tend to have good kerning, good structure, and tend to be better designed than. So I have Google Fonts open right now, and you can find Google Fonts at fonts.google.com. And this is the default screen. It opens up usually at the last screen. You've had a search for different particular fonts. And we'll go through some of the tools that they have here. But you can see it comes up with some, kind of throw some styles at you. Roboto is like a super popular one right now. But you can pick your results based on popularity, what's new. You can also go into categories. And if we click on categories, you'll see it's basically turns everything on. So everything pops up. And you can turn these categories on and off to help you find certain types of fonts. So I switched to serif. Let's see what comes up. It's got like some really great serif fonts. Like I said, it's usually based on popularity. Let's go back and turn display on. Now, I use a lot of display fonts, and those kind of can be a little bit weird when rendering on the internet, but for printing purposes, these are great. You can also go into this. You can go up here and search for certain fonts. Let's look for let me think of one that I know of. One called Lotto. I used to use this a lot for websites, and we'll get our sans serifs on, and there we go. Lotto comes up. So we can turn that off, turn that back on. So you can actually search for a particular font if you know the name of a font. Secondly, you can actually kind of get a preview of what a font is going to look like by typing in something up here. So let's type in like whoops, that's not even an I love, and not all caps. I love typography, because I really do. There we go. And as you can see, it shows that we might want to add a couple more words. And donuts, donuts. I'm not a huge fan of donuts, but it's a good word to type in. You could, if you're working with a headline, you can cut paste the headline in here just to kind of see what it looks like ahead of time on screen. If you're working on a logo, you can type in the text for the logo here. So this little custom thing up here where you type in your little your text to get a preview of it. There's a name for it. I can't remember what it is. I might stick it on the screen when I do the editing. So that's really cool. You can also scale these things way up or down. 40 is usually probably kind of good size to look at on a large screen that I'm wearing. But maybe if you're on a desktop or something, you might want to scale it down a bit. The other things that you can go to are, like we saw earlier, basically picking all these different types of fonts in this list. We're going to turn those all on. We're going to go over to font properties. Now here you can look at things like whether things are, the number of styles. Sometimes a font or a typeface, when it's more than one and it's in a group or a family, it's a typeface. A font is the individual letters, like, Times Roman bold is a font. Times is a typeface. So we can go in here and, there's a couple great typefaces that have a lot of different styles. So let's bump that. Let's click on styles. Let's see, we're going to do more than 10 styles. And you can see it's already changing. These are really great typefaces. Poppins, Montserrat, can't even talk today. Work Sans is a great one. Nodo is one. Nonito, that's actually one of my brand fonts. So you can see there's a lot of different things, a lot of different places you can make choices. Next, we're going to scoot over to Font Squirrel. And but yeah, this is a really, really. Oh, I need to show you how to download these. Oh my goodness, let's not forget that. So we'll click on a font, and we've got all these different choices here. Look at that. That's a great font. If you needed a font for a book or something and needed to have a wide variety of choices to be able to create good contrast in the fonts that you're using, a typeface like Montserrat would be a really good one to use. Very, very functional, good workhorse type of font. But basically, when you're in a font, all you need to do is click download family and the whole thing downloads. Or you actually go through and pick all the ones you want. We're gonna get all of them. We might have missed all of them on the first one. I think maybe you do have to pick them all up front. I thought the default was to basically download everything, and we will double check that. So there we go. Gonna go dismiss. Looks like we have everything in there. This was an important feature, particularly when you're using web fonts, because you may only want to load 2 to 4 web fonts on a website, just so that it doesn't impact the load speed of the website font on slower internet access. So now we're going to click download family, I believe. Yes. We'll do that, and I think it downloaded the whole thing. And then we'll also look at these other things. So that's that there. We try to. I'm gonna have to scoot myself out of the way. You also down here get all the code to install these fonts on your website, and then there's also the API information for using it in apps and other applications. There's another download button here that says download all. This will download all the web fonts. So we'll do that. And now let's go and look where they are. So those fonts should have ended up in my downloads folder. Let's see. Yep. And they're in a zipped file. And I do believe the first one. Actually, that only has. Let's go to the second one that I downloaded. Yeah, so the first one only had the first font in the list. I did have to select each individual font. So make a note of that. And then now you'll see all of these fonts are available for you to install. So we're going to go over to Font Squirrel, take a quick look at that, and then we're going to look at how to install fonts on a Mac. So here we are at Font Squirrel, and it loads up with, hot new releases. This Cooper Hewitt one is a really cool typeface. Like I showed you, Montserrat pops up here. Poppins is another really good one. Quicksand is another one. And so it's just kind of showing you the most popular ones. There's also the recent uploads, font deals. I guess these are like fonts that are paid fonts that are really inexpensive. Web font generator, which kind of like if you're creating a website and want to use a downloaded font, not a font that's already a web font, this will generate the code you need for it. There's also the font identifier, which is actually pretty cool because they call it the maturator. But basically, you drop and drag an image in here, and through AI, they Font Squirrel tries to identify the font for you, and it'll also give you alternatives of a font that's similar. And maybe we'll go over some of these search tools later, but they're pretty easy to figure out yourself. Font Talk, if you can't get enough about fonts, you can go here, ask about fonts. It's a really great resource. So let's go back to their main section. Let's go to Hot. Okay, and much like the other typefaces, they have a download button here, and if you click on it, it's just going to shoot it down to your downloads over here. And then again, if you go over into, like in my downloads file, got Cooper Hewitt, it's a zipped file. We're going to double click it. And there we go. It has all the different ways. That's a really, really nice alternative to Helvetica. It's a new font that's come out within the past 6 months. So, you know, if you're looking at this video in 2073, it's 6 months and 50 years from now. Think about it. So that's how that works. We're going to jump over and look at one more resource, or maybe two, on where to download paid or premium fonts. Okay, so here we are at My Fonts, and we're going to bounce around between a couple of websites that actually are good resources for premium paid fonts. I use them for the typefaces that I design, and often some of the designers on these sites also have their own website where you download fonts. But lots of times going to these ones that aggregate all the fonts together, so you have other vendors to look at. It's really good rather than going to a particular website. But there's some really cool sites out there that do not have, that are basically the only place you can get their font is from their website. So My Fonts is actually part of Monotype, which is the largest corporation selling typefaces on the internet. I think Adobe is second. My Fonts is really great. You can search for all different types of fonts here. It's not a very like exciting site, but like this Norman variable, you know, that's a really popular style right now. Here are a few of my fonts over to the side there. Little plug for my stuff. But basically, you know, they've got their staff picks. Not a super exciting site, but a very useful site. The next one I really like is called You Work for Them. I think it's like you, actually, let's do this. I know it's just their initials, youworkforthem.com. Let's take a peek. Yeah, it's wrong. Let's go back. I'm going to type in You Work for Them. You work for them. We all work for them. We don't know who them is or who them are. Is it plural? I don't know. Let's go there. You work for them. Official site. There we go. Now this is the cooler site. A lot of the same stuff here, but now we're starting to actually get into a few other. Oh, this is a cool font. I see. Now I'm getting excited. But this is a really great site, and this site actually has. Not only does it have fonts, but it also includes extras and graphics and photography. So here you can find a typeface, some photography, some brushes, all different things. Like, let's go pop into this Rizzo print thing. Let's see what this is. Rizzo print. Is it a font? What is it? What is it? Super simple process. Yeah, so these are filters for Photoshop. So it's got a lot of really cool things in here. They have stuff on sale, new releases. It's a really nice site. It's a little more exciting and a little more colorful than My Fonts. This is my like number 2. This is in my top 3. The third one that I use is Creative Market. Creative Market. Oh, and yeah, I have it. Let's close that up. These are my fonts. Oh, pretty fonts. Actually, so let's go into Creative Market, just their main site. This is it's a cleaner site. It actually is a little bit nicer than Monotype, but they also have some really great stuff in here that's not just fonts. And if you sign up, you can get like free resources every week on, I think it's Mondays. And then there's coupons. They run sales. Let's go into the fonts. The fonts are all sort of pre-categorized. I use a lot of display fonts, so let's just pop over there. And it will show you a bunch of fonts that are, let's see, what do we got? We got it set at what's popular. So it's going to show you the top selling or the most popular fonts right now. And you can also switch over to a bunch of other options here, high to low price, the newest fonts. If you want to be, the kid with the new bike on the block, that's that's the button for you. So that is Creative Market. You Work for Them, and My Fonts. I think one more would be Envato. Now, Envato's known a little bit more for Envato Elements. It's known a little bit more for stock images, but recently they've actually added fonts. Let's make sure I'm logged into my site. These things. I'm working on a project for a class that we're building a cereal bowl, and it's got to have milk splashing out of it. And stay tuned. You'll see that video. Let's go and look at fonts here. So it's got the descriptors. You can choose things. This is Rock and Soda. That's actually a pretty nice one. You can see what I'm drawn to, but they're great fonts. Now the cool thing about Envato is this is about like, I think for students it's like $11 a month, and for regular normal people normal people, Envato is about $16 a month. So not only can you get stock video templates, music, sound effects, graphic templates, graphics, presentations of photos, blah, 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 blah. It also includes fonts. So this is really a really, really good source for agencies and things when they're building, even if you're building like a prototype. This is just an amazing source with a lot of resources to like build a complete project from all the resources from one website. So next, what we're going to look at is how to install a font, which is going to take a minute, maybe two. So let's jump over there. Okay, so let's talk about how to install fonts. One of the things you want to do is, your fonts may show up in a download folder or something. And what you might want to do is create a folder on your desktop that's specifically for all your fonts, or something like that. It's up to you, but you want to try to keep your fonts really organized so that the links don't break to the projects they're associated with. And there are a couple different resources for fonts. We're going to focus on two of the Apple products. I actually think one of these products is available for a PC as well. I've got this one thing called Suitcase Fusion. It's over here on a different window. It's an older font resource, but you can categorize your fonts according to groups and turn them on and off. It's a little expensive, but I use this a lot because I work with, literally I have about 10,000 fonts on my computer. I'm also using and testing different fonts for projects or fonts that I design. So having this ability to build these libraries and be able to turn them on and off on the fly is really, really useful. But for most people who are just working on a particular project on a Mac, and I might get, if I can add to this, I'll add the PC stuff or do a different video on how to do PC fonts or install PC fonts. There's a thing called FontBook. We're going to open up FontBook. Basically, FontBook is a bare bones thing that Apple has for font management. It's much easier than it used to be in the past, with not having to load and all these different parameters for fonts. So what we're going to do is we're going to quickly create a new folder here. Let's pull that out here. And we're going to just call this fonts. And this is kind of how I organize fonts. We'll just call this new. We'll just fonts. There we go. And then we're going to drag all of our fonts that we just downloaded into this fonts folder. Cool. Now we've got our two fonts in here. And then let's make another folder within here and call a new folder here and call this one font video. Oops. Font tut video. It just keeps things organized for later if you need to find a certain font for a certain project. And then we're going to take this, we're going to go to Cooper Hewitt, the one that I just downloaded in the previous section. And we are just going to, all we need to do is select all these fonts. Actually, that's cool. This is an open, it's called a SIL license, open font licensing, which basically means that you can share this font with anybody. There's no copyright or anything on it, which is really, really cool. Really great for websites or projects that involve multiple people, or a client maybe has a limited budget and can't buy a custom typeface or multiple copies of a custom typeface. So that can, a good typeface that is a paid font could actually be, in the neighborhood of $300 to $700 for a big brand, or to be able to use it on the web. But these SIL format or SIL licensed fonts, they're basically free to use anywhere. So all we need to do is just drag our old font over into our list, copies it over. There's Cooper Hewitt. It's one of the new fonts we just installed. It's got everything. We can scroll down. It shows us what each weight of the typeface looks like. And that's all you have to do. Just basically drag and drop the typeface from your folder, or the font, or a font from your folder, into FontBook. And it's I'll put the icon up on the screen so you can see it at the beginning of this video. Or I did that already. Ooh. And then if we open a program like Adobe Illustrator, you can see that little spinning wheel was loading the font. So we go and click the typeface and go Cooper Hewitt. Wait, one TT. Okay, there we go. I'm going to blow this way up so we can see. So now we're in Adobe Illustrator. There's the typeface, Cooper Hewitt. Let's center that on the screen a little bit. We'll go to type. I'm going to use the shortcut Command T. Oh, it's way over here on the outside, the outer rim. Get to our list, and then we're going to scroll down to the C's, and there it is, Cooper Hewitt. It's got all the different weights. It's ready to go. So that's how you install a font on a Mac. Pretty easy. I made it look and take longer than it usually does. It's something that just takes a couple seconds after you've downloaded something, but it's a great way to add more fonts to your to a project or your font library that are not just the basic Adobe fonts that come with all the Adobe products. So next, we're going to look at the cool part of the video about font sharing. Stay tuned. In this section, we're going to look at a couple different resources for font pairing. One of the ones that really surprised me, that has a great tutorial in their blog for font pairing, is Canva. It's a program primarily used for social media marketing. The other one is a really cool resource called Typewolf. So let's jump in the computer and go to their sites and take a look at what they offer. Hey, here we are at the Canva website. Like I said, I was super surprised that they had such a great font tutorial, so I figured I would share it. I often share this in some of the classes I teach. So let's take a look at what they've got. Now, the first thing you'll notice is they did a big no-no, at least in my book. They're using basically the prime mark or the foot mark instead of an apostrophe for the pluralization of, or not the possessive case of the word Canva. You can actually change it on the web. It's lazy not to do this. I will show how to do that in a different video. But generally, when you're working like programs like Adobe and things like that, it fixes it for you. When you're working on the web, it usually doesn't, and there's a tiny bit of code that you need to install or to put in your CSS to make sure it works. It's just a pet peeve of mine. So let's get forward. So better together. Ooh, that's actually kind of cool. So this is like a great primer for Typography 101 and also learning really great font pairings. I'm going to put the link to this down below in the comments. So I'll have other links in there too. I'll probably add more even later after this video is published. But it goes through the basics of all the different typographical terms, different types of typefaces, and then it jumps right into how to use these typefaces. Now, what's really cool about the Canva tutorial is that these are all Google fonts, and they're fonts that you can download for free online. So basically, they're making this accessible to anybody, which is really nice. And when you start working with these fonts, through experience, I mean, to be honest, it can take 1 to 2 years to actually get comfortable doing this. So this is a good cheat sheet to use, and then if you have a good starting point like this, you may be able to get really good at font pairings in within a couple months. So we've got this one here. Basically, you've got a nice bold serif that's large, and they're using all caps, and they tell you on the side what size it is, that it's uppercase. Then they're showing you what you would use for a sub headline, which is Libre Baskerville, again a free font. Baskerville is an old traditional font. Adobe has their own version of Baskerville. You'll find a lot of different types of some of these fonts. And then they're also using Libre for Baskerville for the text. But they give you all the measurements and everything to the side right here, which is super, 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 super helpful. And then also they tell you, that this is kind of a design publication styling. If you were doing something for like a blog that I do, or a tutorial on design, this would be a good structure, a good starting point. You could just use these fonts and really, really have it have things looking good from the get-go. And then this, they give you sort of an example. Basically, their stuff is a little focused more on like email and social media, but you go from this up here, the basics, and then you apply it to an image, and you can really tell the image pairing and the typing of it. It really works. They have about 50 of these in here, and we're not going to go through all of them. I think I might just go through one more. That's another good example there. They also have templates that you can use. If you're a Canva, and this is not sponsored by Canva at all, but if you have a professional or premium membership for Canva, you can actually use these tutorials. But just to access this information is free. Again, good resource for resumes. They give you all the sizes, again, at the size. They give you kind of a clean look up front, so you sort of know what you're working with all the names. And then they show you, example of what the fonts look like together. Let's go through maybe a couple more. This is a sports style. It's all sans serif. But again, you've got a nice, bold, big headline. You got contrast going down with a thinner weight and a narrower weight of the subheads styling. And then you basically have a text weight or a normal or regular weight for the body copy. And if we scoot down a little bit more, we can kind of see, now this was being used for a ballet. Isn't that cool? It has a more contemporary feel, but I mean, it's really, really a great font pairing. And again, here's another one. So this is a great place to start. We'll use this one as the last one, because it kind of flip-flops the system. So here we have a nice big, bold Libre Baskerville again, but it's upper and lower case, not all caps. Then we switch over to all caps, lighter weight, but they've done some letter spacing here to kind of like give it some breathing room. It gives it a little bit of sophistication. You would not use letter spacing on upper and lower case. It looks a little bit weird. Gets hard to read unless you were trying to do some sort of brutalist anti-design thing. And then we go to our regular text weight, and you can see, this is just really, really nice and easy to read online. And they're beautiful, beautiful. You can really see how this works. And let's go back up here. Now they did add one little thing in here. They threw in some italics, and maybe that is not quite in the right place. Yeah. Well, see, they didn't quite. I bet they lost the graphics not linking the right way. I'm scrolling through really fast on some of this stuff. See if this Laura one. Okay, this one works a little bit better. It's very, very similar to the Baskerville one that I showed. That they didn't have the right graphic with it, though it was a beautiful graphic, and great use of typography in that graphic. But here they're using Laura instead of Baskerville, and they're using the uppercase in the headline, upper and lowercase, sorry, in the headline, different than the previous ones that were the more modern designs that used all uppercase. And then they're using Laura all caps with some letter spacing. And finally, very similar to the Baskerville one that I just showed, they have the regular casing, the regular upper and lower case for the text, set with a very standard line spacing. It's probably, that's one thing you really should pay attention to. And it's sometimes called, it's line spacing for the web and it's leading for print. But this is a really good example. And then we go switch over to here, you can actually see it in use. And that's really, really beautiful. So, this is a great, great like cheat sheet or jumping off point to learn a lot about typography and font usage and type pairings. The other thing in here is that I have students do sometimes is actually go in and download a few of these graphics, put them in the background in Adobe Illustrator or Photoshop or whatever program you're using, and then sort of try to play around, then download the fonts, get everything up and running, all your pieces together, and then play around with lining these things up, matching exactly what they have here. Do that for a few of them, and you really, really start getting a sense of how to set up your typography and your font pairings in your design programs. So that's it for the font pairing on Canva. In a second, we're going to jump over to another source that I use that is called Typewolf. So here we are at Typewolf, and again, you can see from the get-go that it's a little more sophisticated or maybe a little more serious than Canva. It is more of a typeface resource or typography resource about everything about typography more than just font pairings. But I'm on a page that has a font pairing with a particular font. It takes a little bit more digging around in here to find to find the font pairing resources, but once you get used to it, you can actually find some good ones. And how this works is it's going to show you real world projects that use the fonts in them. And I think as an extra at the end of this video, I'm going to show one more thing called fonts in use, which is a very, very similar concept. So here, if we scroll down, we'll see like the suggested font pairings down here. This is kind of what you're looking for. But there are also some free PDFs and things to download and free alternative fonts for paid fonts. So it's a really good resource, but it's sort of like if the Canva tutorial or blog post was type 101, this is type 201. So here we're looking at they're going to tell you like this typeface, this here uses the fonts Windsor and Favorite, and this is a whole page dedicated to the type Favorite. And if we go through it, it'll show you it's going to show you free alternatives. It's going to show you another design here that's using it. This is the font Nib, which is this down here, and Favorite, which is up here. Here we have Open Office Times and Favorite. So we've got a combination here, and it's going to just show you some different combinations that are being used out in the real world. There are some other places in here that where you can go in and actually buy selected font pairings for projects that are curated ahead of time, so you'll know you're getting something that works, and it usually comes with a tutorial on sort of the best way to use them. So this is Typewolf. This is a little more advanced than what's available on Canva, but it's also another really, really good resource for finding type pairings when you start getting comfortable with combining fonts and leading and kerning. This is sort of the next phase. We're going to jump into one more called Fonts in Use. That's more of a tool for finding out what particular types of fonts are used. It's more of an inspiration guide than anything else. So let's quickly jump over there. Okay, so here we are at Fonts in Use. The link will be below, down there. And it's fontsinuse.com. And I love this website. A friend of mine years ago, he used this. He hit like a creative block on a packaging project. Came up with a really cool solution. I asked him how he did it, and he was like, "Oh, I used fonts in use." It's like, oh, I've never heard of that. What is it? So anyway, this is a collection of real world projects, and then they identify the typefaces and the fonts used on the project, and they also provide links on where you can download those, or also like sometimes they even link to like old like type specimens that you might have to like digitize to be able to use. But this is a really great resource. Like I said, it's really good in case you get stuck on something, or if you just want to get inspired. You can look up all different, like, I think they have a blog. You can look up by the particular typeface. You can also look at what was it? My brain went blank. That's okay. Let's just poke around in here for a minute and take a look at what we've got. So yeah, like this is a really old 1970s font. In fact, you can type in and search like 1970s, and it'll pull up all sorts of things like 1970s album covers, psychedelic stuff, and you will be able to find the name of the fonts that are being used and where to purchase them. So let's just click on this no-tell motel sign using this 1970s font, Giorgio, and I think this is like a really, yeah, this is like a vintage hotel. So I mean, this font goes that far back then too. And here's the typeface, Giorgio. It's made by VGC. They've got all the different categories. If we click on the typeface, it's going to tell us, I think if we click here, will it take us to where to download it? Somewhere in here there's here we go, get the font. You can go to like my fonts, and there it is, Giorgio. It sucks here, but I'm gonna pull this little menu out of the way. But here it tells you that another one, Ekman. I actually did my own version of Ekman recently. It's an old font from an old Art Nouveau font from the 1890s. I think it was actually released in like 1901, and it's just it's a super great resource for all these different things. So yeah, you could type in like 1950s. Let's do 1950s. No, let's do 1990s. 1990s. Let's try this 1990s style search, and there we go. It's going to pull up all these different designs that were designed in the 1990s. It's going to tell you all the different names of the typefaces. It's going to show you. So, if you're trying to knock off a design, a parody design of something from the past, this is the place to go. It is just, it's great. And I would almost make it mandatory for every student, everyone who is interested in fonts and typography or wants to get better with it, to kind of like go through the site a couple hours a week or 1 to 2 hours. Make it sort of your homework. Make it your job. It is just a great resource. I can't recommend it enough.